Welcome to the Cabrera Lab Podcast.
Hey.
What is up?
That's an interesting question from a lot of different perspectives. You could have different answers.
You could. And what is up?
Right now, it's just the ceiling.
I mean, literally what
Oh, yeah.
is up? Like up is a relative.
Like it is not list up.
Yeah.
I've sort of started this series of things, of little bones to pick of things that people say that bug us.
Yeah.
That I want to expand people's understanding of what they are and why they bug us.
Okay.
So last week, if you remember, we talked about root causes.
Yes.
So I want to talk about this whole idea of, and we've said it a lot, that problem solving is your first bias. The reason I want to ask about it today is a couple of people actually mentioned it to me, like, well, what does that actually mean? Because it seems kind of like a nonsensical sentence to some people in the outer world outside of the studio. So when we say that, what do we mean? We mean literally it's a bias. It is actually a bias.
It's a bias. You're projecting something onto the world, onto the real world situation that you're trying to figure out that isn't there.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's hard because people project their values and their evaluation. I mean, this is the same issue we have with critical thinking. You have values, and these values get projected onto the world, and the world might not be utilizing those values when it's doing its thing, when it's doing its dynamical dance that it does, right?
Yeah.
And so when we project onto it, it's a bias that causes us not to see what's really going on.
Well, I think the biggest downside that we talk a lot about is when you start with a problem solving sort of as a bias, you jump straight to a solution, to solving.
Yes.
Before you have sort of taken the time to understand the wider context, the system itself.
Yeah, I would say that's the case for every one of our grad students comes wanting to solve a problem, a really big problem.
They have beautiful hearts.
Big hearts.
Big things they want
big
to fix,
hearts,
and
big
we
minds.
love them all.
But they come with a problem that they want to solve. Mm-hmm. They're passionate about solving it. And in many cases, they think they know what the solution is.
Yes.
And 2 years later, after, really looking into it, they realize that, one, the problem that they thought it was isn't really relevant to the system. It's not that relevant. Mm-hmm. It's certainly not the most important things that are going on in the system.
Yes.
And two, the solution they thought was the solution wasn't the solution.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think one of the dangers of this whole thing is, you start thinking that, you go straight into solution mode. And also, many people come loaded with already thinking they know the solution, or they're fixated on a single solution based on some, I don't know, experience.
Yeah, I mean, the best metaphor, the alternative for coming with a problem-solving bias is just to sort of think of it in terms of understanding systems. That your goal is to understand the system that's in front of you, right? So a great metaphor would be, I sometimes think of it as like an investigator, right? And a crime scene.
Yeah.
Like even the notion, the forensic guy, like the whatever you call him.
The forensics guy who comes in with the paper things on his feet and he's looking at all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. If you came to it and you said, this is a murder, well, you're already putting a bias on it because you don't know it's a murder. It might have been an accident.
Right.
If you came to it and said, this is an accident, you're already putting your bias because it might have been a murder.
Right.
You want to come to it like as clean as possible and just listen. Listen to all the feedback of the system that you see so that you can figure out what happened.
Yes.
Right? That's the way to approach systems.
Okay, so to carry your example, you walk in, you're like, there's a dead body.
There is a dead body.
There's an open window.
There's an open window.
There's a dog in the corner crying. Like, you could just say, like, literally, what?
Yeah, like, just the facts.
Just like, what have you observed?
What have we seen?
Yeah, and that's how you start.
Yeah.
Understanding the system of that room before you even make a conclusion.
Yeah, you don't want to jump to, Mr. Mustard with the candlestick.
Colonel Mustard.
Colonel Mustard with the candlestick in the library
I was going to say
too
library.
soon, you know?
That's right.
You gotta figure out the clues, right?
That's right.
And problem solving is really, it puts a bias.
Yes.
It puts a bias right at the front of your analysis and synthesis and understanding of things.
Yes.
And there's a chaos theory is really about sensitive dependence on initial conditions, which just means like the first conditions can really affect how the system plays out.
Yes.
So the things you do at the very beginning of your approach to the system can really determine
Yes.
sensitive dependence on initial conditions, right? So it can really, the outcomes of what you do can really sensitively depend on the very first things you do. And so when you walk into the room with, this is a problem, this is the way it is, we got to solve this problem, what's the solution? You're creating a system that's going to play out very sensitively dependent on that initial kind of take.
Right. So I guess part of what I'm thinking as you're saying that is problem-solving bias. We've already talked about, well, one side of that is the solving. We're focused on a solution. We're moving towards action right away.
Yeah.
We're knee-jerk in the way we start thinking about it.
Right.
But what on the other end, there's the problem with the problem, which is we're framing it as a problem from the get-go.
Yep.
Right? We're not taking the time to really think about that framing and put it in that wider context of understanding the murder scene, for example.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand why people have the problem. I mean, take a problem which all of us would say, yeah, that's a problem. You know, like our product isn't selling. You know, like that's a problem for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, from one perspective, that's a problem, but from another perspective, that's feedback.
I see.
Right? That people don't like your product.
You might need to change something.
Yeah. So rather than be like, how are we going to sell more of this thing? Mm-hmm. Which would be an obvious solution to we're not selling enough of this thing, which is the problem, right?
Right.
Maybe it's well, what's the feedback we're getting about why this thing isn't working? Like, why aren't people wanting this thing? Maybe we created something that nobody wants.
Well, yeah, or it could be your price point is too high. Or
Could be a lot of things.
It's being associated with something else nobody ever.
But there could be a bunch of other things going on. It could have nothing to do with your product.
True.
Right? It could have to do with a bunch of other factors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what you want to do is kind of understand the system of what is happening that leads to this thing being this way and this thing being this way, and what are all the factors, and not jump too quickly to let's solve this problem.
And I also think if you take more of a systems approach, you can anticipate what's going to happen downstream if you start solving the problem that way. And you might, for example, realize there'd be an unintended consequence to the solution you started with in the first place. Yeah,
I mean, I think it was Einstein that said something to the effect of, I don't know, Einstein gets misquoted a lot, but something to the effect of, you know, if I had a problem, I would spend 99% of the time understanding the system.
Yeah.
And 1% of the time solving the problem.
Yes.
Right? And that's similar to what we're saying is like, if you spend all of your focus on the problem, then you're not going to understand the system. And if you don't understand the system, the chances of you solving the right problem is practically zero.
Right. So there's a huge
because you might not
cost.
even see what the real underlying issue is, right?
Yes.
You might solve a problem that is like, you might solve the actual problem that you came up with, and it's totally operationally irrelevant.
Yeah, and I think
problem that you solved.
People think it's faster to just solve the problem.
Yeah.
And they don't have time
Of course.
to slow down and understand the system. And then, you know, well, how's that working, right?
I think that is such a huge thing. Like, I hear that all the time. Like, I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. You don't have the time not to. I mean, the reason it's the whole thing about my job is putting out fires. If your job is putting out fires, then it needs to be somebody's job to figure out what's causing all the fires.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just going to spend all your day. I mean, like if you have a little car, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say we can draw this, right? So let's say you're in your little car, right?
Art by Derek.
Yeah, here's your car, right? There's your wheels. There's your window, right? And you're driving down the road, right?
You do realize this is dragging on the road, this piece right here.
Yeah.
You need bigger wheels.
Exactly. And you've got your little hose out the back, right?
Uh-huh.
And you've got these fires. There's little fires, right? And you're like hosing down this fire. You stop, and you hose down this fire, right? You hose it down, right? You stop, you hose down this fire, right? At some point, you got to ask yourself, what is causing all these fires, right? And if driving right ahead of you is like another one of your cars in your group, right, in your work, except this one has like a tailpipe that is dragging.
Mm-hmm. Causing sparks.
Which is causing sparks, which is then causing fires all the way down the road. How long can you do this for?
Forever.
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 It might be worthwhile to like speed ahead, crash into this guy, stop him from creating fires, or do whatever you need to do. Like you got to see the bigger picture of where are all these fires coming from? Mm-hmm. If your whole day is putting out fires, there's something wrong with the structure of your organization.
That's right.
That's creating all these fires.
That's right.
You better see it. But what we do is we go, well, this fire right here is the problem. Mm-hmm. It needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Let's fix it. How will we fix it? We need more water. Let's get more water.
Yeah.
Now we have this problem. Let's fix that one. Oh, we have another problem. Let's fix that problem.
Right, because we're not seeing the pattern. We're seeing these as different problems, but they're all the same.
This episode is sponsored by Training Camp, the ultimate online spot for building the mental fitness that drives personal and professional change and success. At Training Camp, you'll have access to the science and practice of thinking, with personalized thinking assessments, tiered training, and best of all, practice that improves skill. Go to cabreralab.org to learn more. And now, back to the episode.
We're not seeing the pattern. We're not seeing the big picture. We're stopping to solve this problem because we don't have time not to. And we never take the time to race ahead and see what's going on in front of us that's leading to all these fires.
That's right. We really should take a picture of this and frame it. It's quite good. Right. So, I mean, a lot of, I guess what I'm thinking is when we say problem-solving bias, I mean, that really is a more reactive stance.
It's very reactive.
Than it is proactive.
It's completely reactive.
It's sort of shorter-term thinking versus longer-term thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it's shorter term. I just think it's stupid.
Yeah, but
like it's not about short and long.
Yeah.
I guess it's short, but it's just sort of dumb.
Yeah, it is dumb. But
I don't know if it has to do with short and long as much as dumb and smart.
Well, yes, but this person is only seeing this fire, and then they put it out. And then they see this fire, and then they put it out.
But while they're standing here, right, it's not like they can look down the road.
Yeah.
While they're standing here with the hose, they could just, like, look down the road and be like, oh, my God, there's fires all the way down the road. What is going on?
Yeah.
Maybe we should do something different.
Yeah, but I think we have a tendency, I mean, I think most humans have a tendency just to do what's right in front of them.
Yeah.
Think about to-do lists.
Yeah.
You know, we narrow it down to put just a few things right in front of us that we can deal with, and we're not sort of seeing everything in a wider view.
Well, I think there's real progress that can happen when you do the things in front of you, but you got to get the right view, right? Like when you're in the backcountry, you got to get up high so you can see the view. You got to triangulate, know where you're going, and then once you get the big view, then you got to focus on the little rocks and the, not tripping and getting yourself killed or whatever. But it's in the bigger picture of things. You understand the bigger picture. You've zoomed out a little bit. Right. Well,
and I think a lot of people would say, well, it's the leadership's job to see the bigger picture. But what I think you would be saying is all of us can see further down the road, and we should all of us try to see further down the road.
Yeah.
to avoid this situation.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. If I was putting out fires all day, I'd do something about it.
You'd look down.
I'd be like, I'm sick of putting out fires.
You'd find this spark. You'd figure it out.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm going to let this part of the road burn so that I can go ahead and find out what's causing all the fires. What is happening down it? What is the system? Why is this happening?
Right.
And it might not be a single cause. It might be a bunch of different things happening, but I would try to understand the system. What is going on?
Right.
Why is this happening?
Because you don't really have time not to understand it. Because if this becomes your whole life, that's not tenable.
It's not. It's very expensive.
It's expensive. It's silly. I mean, it is kind of stupid.
Right? And you're saying, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough resources. Yeah. You don't have enough time and resources not to. This is very costly.
Yes, unless you are literally in the fire putting out business.
Yeah, there are some jobs whose like the job itself is like if you're a fireman, your job is literally putting out fires, right? Okay, like I get that. Yeah, that's your job.
Yeah.
But most of us aren't firemen.
Yeah, but firemen also investigate the cause of the fire and try to prevent future fires. Like when they
some
do,
of them.
What are those things they do? Controlled burns.
Yeah.
That's a preventive view on.
That's right.
Like if they know an area.
I mean, that's why we're trying to understand why are these fires happening all over the place all of a sudden, and it's it's because of a mental model that of the way we deal with the forests and all kinds of things, and also
Well, it's all about mental models.
It's a web of causality, a bunch of different things that are happening.
Well, I think it's interesting because I don't think a lot of people on its face would realize that when you say, "Oh, I'm in problem-solving mode," or "I'm going to go solve that problem," they don't realize that that's really unconsciously a form of bias. Like, I don't think people think about that very much.
No, and they think there's a saying called suddenly syndrome. We talk about that a lot. It's like these things happen suddenly. Suddenly there was a fire. Suddenly I got divorced. Suddenly I got overweight. Suddenly these things are happening in my relationship. Whatever, and very few things happen suddenly.
Yeah.
Most of it's like there's a buildup.
Yeah.
There's an incrementalism to it, and if you're having things happen suddenly, it's because you've ignored something for a while.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you're going to solve the problem, it's not the thing that's happened suddenly. It's the pattern, it's the structure of the system that has been built up over time that is causing these little suddenly things to happen.
Suddenly there's
Suddenly there's a fire. Suddenly there's a fire. Suddenly there's a fire. Well, it's not that sudden.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we talk about is to me, I mean, the base unit of everything we talk about is your mental models and sort of bringing things that are unconscious into your conscious. So when you're thinking about, I'm going to go solve a problem, just think about for a minute, what is the mental model that you have that's causing you to believe you're going to go solve, like, what is
or just replace it with, every time you hear yourself say, I'm going to go solve a problem, or this is a problem, or we got to solve that problem, just replace it with understand the system.
Yes, I like that better.
We got to understand this system.
Yeah.
That we don't understand this system.
Right. Or actually, like what you said, you could use the fact that you see a problem as feedback that something in our understanding or our mental model way back then is leading to what we perceive to be a problem.
Problems that are arising and you see them as problems is really just it's like reality is giving you feedback that your mental model is wrong somewhere.
Yes.
And so I would just take it as feedback. If I get a problem, I'm like, oh, that's feedback.
Yeah.
This is feedback from reality that says my mental model is askew. My mental model is not aligned with reality. My mental model is off somewhere. Yeah. I am doing something that doesn't cohere and align with reality. And I've got to undo that thing. I've got to come up with a better mental model that is more in alignment with reality.
Yeah.
And that applies to everything. It doesn't matter whether it's personal and professional, professional. It's like if you're not getting enough sleep, your mental model of sleep is wrong. You know, and there's something that you're doing that you think is okay that isn't. if you're not getting,
right.
enough of anything, nutrition,
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, we were talking to a group, yesterday, and you said, all problems are mental models. Like,
Yeah.
every problem you have is just a mental model about something.
Yeah, I mean, that is mind-boggling, right? If you understand, and people are going to freak out about this probably.
Don't freak out.
They'll freak out on us.
Don't freak out on us.
Problems are not real.
Right.
They're our mental model. The problem, doesn't exist in nature.
Well, it's something we've constructed.
We've constructed
Yes.
that it's a problem.
Yes.
That, if you had to point to the problem, you'd have to point in here,
Yeah. To your mental model.
in your mental model.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You couldn't point to it out there.
I mean, that's what Csikszentmihalyi says about stress.
Yeah.
Stress is just something we construct mentally.
It's
we
a mental
we make a mental
construction,
model,
right.
and we create stress through our thinking.
Right.
And stress is not a real thing, just like you're saying. Like
Problems are not real.
things.
They're mental
yeah.
constructs
Yeah.
of the situation, but they're not in the situation.
That's right.
The problem. The situation is the situation, but the problem is not in the situation.
Right. It's how we're thinking.
It's how we're framing the situation.
Well,
So we're putting a lot of emphasis on these little mental models that we create instead of just understanding reality better.
Well, and I think that's quite liberating.
Yeah, to me it is.
I mean,
Awesome.
I found that quote about stress to be quite liberating. I think when you say all problems are mental models, it allows you to sort of take the weight of all of that off of yourself and have the agency to rethink it, to really dissect, well, what is the mental model I have that's leading to this situation that's either causing this problem or this feeling or whatever it is? Well, I have control over that. I have control over my mental models. And
you have agency.
I have agency,
You
sorry.
have
Agency over it.
agency, yeah.
About how I'm thinking.
You have some
about things.
influence on how you think them.
Right, which means I can improve my condition all by myself,
Yes.
which is nice. I don't have to rely on I don't have to believe that it requires a bunch of stars to align and people to do X, Y, Z. It's
Totally.
It's all inside of me.
It's empowering. I mean, I wouldn't say you have, I don't want to say that everything's on you and everything's your.
No, I know what you mean.
Right. I mean, there are external influences and things like that, but it increases your agency, which increases your empowerment. So you have more say in the matter, not ultimate say. You don't have ultimate say about shit. Right?
That's true. I mean, I was reading I don't remember where it was. Somebody was saying that 90% of your issues are how you're reacting to reality, and that you have some control over how you react to things. And to me, that relates to
100%.
my thinking,
Yeah.
my mental models.
Yeah.
Like I can have some.
You have agency over the way you react
Yeah.
and choosing action.
Yes, that's right. Let's remind them about the conference,
Oh, yeah.
because we're getting closer to the conference.
We are getting closer to the conference.
Yes.
So the Cornell Systems Thinking Conference, cornell.systems is the address, cornell.systems.
Yes.
And the theme this year is Connect the Dots, which was last week's episode.
Yes.
It's going to be a cool conference. It's a
gonna be
great
a great
conference. It's
conference.
all free.
It is free, and also what we were just talking about is going to be pretty prevalent there, because a lot of the people who are presenting are going to talk about how they framed a problem, how they had certain insights change as they, sought to understand the system of a web of causality. And so it's all related.
Yep.
It's all related in really cool ways.
And the book, Connect the Dots, is available for pre-order. That's our newest book,
I keep forgetting all this stuff.
Connect the Dots, which is available at CabreraLab.org. I think that's a wrap.